Hello, everybody. Well, we're back. I just want to let you all know I have a wonderful guest. I have two in
Yeah,
particular.
yeah.
I have my protege here, Angela, who's going to help me. She's slightly off camera. And I also have an author here of the book, The Venus Flytrap, Sex Lies and Repercussions, Dr. Stephen Paul Edwards. How you doing, Doc?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Christopher. I'm really excited about the show and I'm excited we've got an additional guest with Angela. I think we're going to have fun.
Awesome, me too. So tell us about a little bit about you and about your book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first off, I just want to mention, and you know this, I've sent you a link for all your listeners and viewers. So if they're interested, if we do get into the book, we might not. We got so many other things we might talk about. But if
Yeah,
anybody is interested in the book, I've given a link to Christopher. He's probably going to put it in the notes that you can get the first three chapters for free. So no one's going to have to spend any money today. And then
yeah,
the other thing that I do coaching, right? Mind, body, spirit coaching, but specifically on relationships and toxic relationships, because the book is about a very toxic relationship. So if anybody is interested in A, not getting into one, B, getting out of one, or C, making sure they never go back in one, then I do that coaching, not because I had it all together back then, but because I lived it, right? So I know all those things and how to get in and get out. That said, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about, Angela?
Angela, what do you want to talk about?
Gosh, there's a lot to talk about.
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that, when we're talking about toxic relationships, I know domestic violence is very big right now. There's been several
Yeah.
cases that I've seen in the news recently. I believe the latest one was out of Shreveport, Louisiana,
Right.
Okay.
with the father who unfortunately,
Oh, is this
killed
the one that he shot like seven kids?
Yes.
seven
Oh
of
my
his kids,
goodness.
a
Yeah.
cousin, and then
His ex
his
ex.
ex-wife
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Oh, and the girlfriend?
Yes.
Jesus. Let's
Yeah.
talk about
Wow.
that.
Well, that is certainly a toxic relationship. My goodness. Um, that's something that I don't think many people have ever been through. So what are we going to talk about that, Angela? Do you want to dive into a certain area about that or
Well, the
why it
one
is
thing
true?
that I hear a lot of people talk about is like the warning signs.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So, if I'm hearing you correctly, what are the warning signs of a toxic relationship? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, well, you'll read them all in the book because they are there. There.
Yeah.
But let's talk
And how
about them
could that have been
specifically, right?
prevented, maybe?
Let's talk about them specifically. Yes.
Okay.
So, usually in a toxic relationship, now, I say, I hate to generalize, which is a good thing to say before you generalize, right? So,
Right.
generally speaking, in a toxic relationship, there's usually what we would consider a giver and a taker, right?
Right.
There's someone that is over giving and the taker overtakes, right?
Right.
So, what happens is the giver becomes obsessed with the taker, right? So in this book, it's called the Venus flytrap. So
Hmm.
there's one person that's the Venus flytrap that is going to devour the other, and there's a person that's a fly, right? I was the fly in this particular relationship.
Oh man.
So yeah, it was an experience, and I learned a lot from it. So it was a gift, a hidden gift, right? But anyway, so the things that happen that you're not necessarily aware of to begin with, because it happens little by slow, is you start giving pieces of yourself away,
Mm.
your identity of who you are. The things that you want to do, you sacrifice to do what they want to do, right?
Hmm.
So it could be, you like to go work out. And usually the taker is manipulative. What they want to do is isolate you. So you have no friends, you have no family, you have nothing that you do except be with them, right?
Hmm.
Narcissistic.
Very, yeah. And so, like the giver will just give so much, and the taker will just keep taking it. It'll never end, right? It's
Hmm.
never going to be enough, right? However much time, however much attention you give them, they always want more. So little by slow, you might like to go work out. They're not going to do that. They're going to tell you, no, don't go work out right now. Be here with me. And before you know it, you don't work out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or you do other things to take care of your health and you stop doing those because they're not healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might not drink and then suddenly you're drinking because they drink and there's no way you can convince them to stop drinking. So you think, well, I might as well join them because I'm not going to change them, right? And so all these little things that you justify in your mind, and before you know it, you've lost your identity. You've lost who
Mm.
you are. And then you're in real trouble, right? Because then you've got your support system evaporates because they'll usually get you to fall out with them for some reason. They will say they don't like them and they will put you in a compromising position where you'll choose them before you choose yourself, right?
Mm.
So those are the signs that you're doing it. It doesn't happen overnight. It just happens little by slow. So what you would recognize is that you're putting them before yourself, right? And you can't do that. Like the story of we use the analogy we use all the time. If you're on an airplane and you're 30,000 foot in the air, the oxygen mask come down, you're going to put your own on first, right?
Right.
But what happens a lot in life is the givers want to save the world, right? But they don't realize they got to save themselves first, right? They forget
Right.
about
Right.
themselves.
Right.
It's just me. Well, they need me more than whatever those things are. But those are just stories that we tell ourselves, and we've got to be in our a sense of self. People say you got to love yourself, which you do. You got to love yourself enough to put yourself first. And we live in a society that very often tells you that's selfish,
Mm.
right? But it isn't, right? I mean, how are you going to give to somebody else that which you don't have yourself, right? You can't, right? So although it sounds very I don't know what the word would be. It sounds very nice that you want to give so much to everybody. But it's really, if you're trying to save everybody else, who are you really trying to save?
Right.
Just
Right.
yourself, right? You want to save yourself, but you're too afraid to face yourself, right? And so
Mm.
you find the way to save people, almost like what's wrong with them and how can I fix them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rescue, save, and fix mode. All right. So that was a long answer, Angela. I'm sorry I went a little bit long, but does
You.
that go some way to answering the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
I
She's
have
a
an
lot.
old.
She's a lot more. She has more brevity than I do. Yep.
Yeah. I have an old pastor who preached a sermon about something like this, and he called it the horror of self-encounter.
Mm,
Yeah, you get scared of yourself. You don't want to
yeah.
deal
Yeah.
with that part of you. And it's weird how people fall into these traps. These poor kids that get snatched up by predators,
Yeah.
or these poor women get caught up while these people who were their husbands apparently are
Hmm. Hmm.
separated. In the case of that former lieutenant governor up in Virginia, who decided to shoot his family up. It's just all ridiculous. And are there anything that you know? Can you offer for advice for people who might be in a situation where they might feel like they're trapped in a relationship and they can't get out? And any thoughts about that kind of scenario? Because I would imagine some of that may have played
I,
out with these
I come
victims.
across this a lot because of the thing that I do, right? Now, I adopted a belief quite some time ago,
Mm,
right? And I'm going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to tell you why it doesn't always work for most people.
mm,
So, my belief is that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. Now, that's an easy belief to say
mm,
you believe it, but it's different when it's in the real world because it's easy to believe, well, yeah, everything's happening for me. Everything is, I'm doing great, right? It's easy to believe then. But when we experience trauma, tragedy, or the difficult things in life, it's more difficult to accept that it's happening for you, right? Perfect
mm,
example of the things we're talking about, right? And people will argue up and down. How could I, how is this happening for me, right? So in some of the circumstances we're saying, how does a child get abducted and, get abused and how does that happen for them, right? Because they didn't even have any conscious choice, right, of that happening.
mm-hmm,
That's a lot of work, right? But if you're committed to it, you'll find a silver lining. There always is,
mm-hmm,
right? When we talk about abuse, it's terrible, and I'm not saying that, in a coaching session, I'm just going to say, hey, listen, stop worrying about it. It happened for you. That's not going to work, right? We've got a lot of work to do before we get to that
Mm.
point. But when we really get to that point and say, well, if this happened for you, I'm not saying it did, but if it did, what would you say has happened as a result of that experience that you're glad has occurred?
Mm.
And there's always something they'll say, well, I wouldn't have met Mary, or I wouldn't have met John, or so now we're starting to make ground, right? Now we're starting to see that things have happened in your life that would never have happened. So now that this has happened, how do you feel about yourself? And that could go either way, right? So
Hmm.
what we're doing is turning somebody, not saying that's good, not saying go back to that guy again or that woman again or that situation, but if we can start to extract some things from this experience that you have learned that have made your life better, then we can really get into at an even deeper level. That is, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spirits having a human experience. And and I remember listening to your podcast, and you were talking about what we can do for children to give them a better environment and for them to experience trauma. And while I think we want to minimize the trauma, we don't want to stop it.
Oh,
We
that's
have to
interesting.
we have to experience trauma, because if we don't experience trauma and we protect our children too much, then we're not giving them a chance to the growth that if we don't allow them to do that as children, it's going to be a lot harder to face when they're grown up and you're not there.
They call those the helicopter parents, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And excuse me, and I've talked to certain parents who say I'm the helicopter parent, and I'm like they're really proud of that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember
But
you talking about that in the interview when I was listening to you. Yeah, yeah.
oh yeah, but it's not healthy because the children don't learn how to adapt. They don't, when we were kids, when I was a kid, we were like pushed outside. Hey, go out and play,
Yeah.
and we'll see you at sundown.
Sometime, yeah, yeah. Well, what they used to know, Christopher, is we were going to come home when we were hungry, right? We were going to
Right.
be home when we were hungry, no
You're going
question, right?
home, and we would get into all kinds of stuff, man.
Oh
And
my God, yeah.
it's the wonder we didn't
Killed.
die,
I know, right? Oh, seriously, I know, man. I got into so much stuff. When I was about 11, we're out in the park. You used to go to the park, right? Or
Oh
some other
yeah,
hangout place that you went, right?
yeah.
So we're out there, and this kid comes we had a little roundabout. You used to be able to push the roundabout around and go fast. So he came out and he had a bottle of whiskey.
Oh Lord.
He'd just taken it out of his parents' drinks cabinet, right? So we start drinking this whiskey, and I'm like chugging it down, right? I'm chugging it, right? So now we walk across the field, and by the time I got to the side of the field, Christopher, I was all over the place.
Oh no.
I was all over the place.
Oh,
They got to get me home, and they're trying to, get me to walk home. I remember, I'll never forget. At one point, we used to have these little stores, right, in the street, and so I'm walking, and I walked straight into the glass window at the front door.
no. Oh
My
my
God,
God.
it's amazing it didn't knock me out or even kill me. So anyway, finally, I get my friend kind of coaxes me back to my house, right? And he lived across the street, and he knew my father, right? He's going, "That's as far as I'm going," right?
Ah,
So
ah.
I walked in the back door, and I walked into the living room, trying to look like I'm sober. No chance, right? I did a circle around the living room and left the living room, and went upstairs and was violently sick for about 4 hours. So,
Oh my God.
but I could have been killed of alcohol poisoning, right?
Hmm.
It's life, My parents were like, "Well, now you've learned your lesson, right?"
Yeah.
No, and then my dad said, "Well, you better go to school tomorrow." Well, guess what? I went to school the next day, man. I felt like hell, but I went to school. So there are things that happen. By the way, I can't even, still to this day, Christopher and Angela, I can't even smell whiskey. It just
That's
makes me, I can't, right? So you could say, one silver lining of that was, well, he doesn't drink whiskey, right? He's not
right.
alcoholic, right?
That's
Uh,
right.
so, but there were, that's my point. I mean, it's like, we sometimes put our kids in cotton wool, we'll use this hand sanitizer, make sure there's no germs. There's
Hmm.
supposed to be germs, right?
Hmm.
You got to build your immune
Builds the
system.
immune system.
There you
That's
go,
it.
Angela, right? So there was a kid across the street from where we live. He used to eat worms. He was fine.
Oh,
Nothing ever
My
happened to him, right?
my
I'm not.
story about that is we were at the zoo and my 23-year-old son at the time was about, I don't know, maybe, I don't think he could have been more than 2 or 3. And I turned around for a second and he picked up a piece of gum off the ground and put it in his mouth.
oh, lovely.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just freaking. I'm like, oh my God, should I take him to the emergency room? And
Yeah, well, that's
so,
what society tells us these days, right?
exactly.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When we were kids, right, Christopher, they never told you any of that. Yeah, he'll be
Nah,
fine. He'll be fine.
nah, he'll be fine.
Yeah,
Is he bleeding to death? No. Okay, good. That was
right.
it.
Call me when
So
he is.
we talk about that to this day, but yeah, I mean, this generation, we're just
Yeah, yeah.
paranoid of that.
There's a balance, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, right? We don't want children to be. I mean, you hear some of these situations where people are in these houses, nobody even knows they're there, and they're abused to the. I mean,
Yeah.
Mm.
you know, we want to help those kids out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? We want to take that away. We want to stop human trafficking, but they're not. Though there's So when you say, okay, everything happens for you, okay, we can help people figure that out, but we also have to say, as a society, this is happening for us because it's bringing our attention to something that is just not acceptable, and we don't solve this by helping an individual realize why something happened for them, but as a community, as a society, as a human race, we've got to stop accepting that these things are okay. Well, that's just the way things are. No, it isn't. I was listening to a really good conversation. What's his name? Degrassi Tyson, the scientist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
He's
definitely.
amazing. I love that guy. And he was talking to a couple of podcasters that were in London because it's in England, and two very smart guys. And they were talking about. Oh, they got into in a big way. They got into this whole issue, which is another issue we can get into, of this transgender being in female sports, right? So the into female
Oh.
sports, and these two guys were saying, well, it's just wrong, that they're physically different, they're stronger, and all this stuff. So anyway, he said, well, one of the things you can do is this is at the beginning, and I'll get into some of the deeper stuff in a second. But he said something about, well, we could do this and this and this, and they say, well, in order to do that, you'd have to have this change in Parliament and all this stuff, and so and so Degrassi said, okay, well, that's just not the way things are. That's not the field we're playing on. He said to Degrassi, Neil Degrassi, right? Tyson Degrassi. So Degrassi said, then you change the field,
Uh,
right? You don't have to play on that field. Change the field, right?
mm.
And then he said, he grew up as a wrestler. Well, he grew up and he wrestled. He grew up as a wrestler. He grew up and he became a wrestler, right? And he said, so we had competition, and you play or you wrestled with people of your own body weight, right?
Right.
So there was a range, right? But within that range, you didn't, as a 5'2", 120 pounds, you're not wrestling with a 226'2" guy, right? Because it'd be
Hmm.
silly, right? So he said, maybe what you do in those situations, you base it on hormones,
Mm.
right? Now he said, I don't know if that's the answer, but it could be, right? But the bottom line is, by asking a better question, you get a better answer, right? Instead of saying, well, that's just the way things are. Think about it. Boxing, they have different weight classes, right?
Hmm.
Welterweight, featherweight, middleweight, bantam, whatever they are. I don't know what the hell they mean, but they're all different weights that
Hmm.
apply that, right? Which makes it fair, right? So why can't we do that with transgender sports? But here's the bottom line. And he said this. He said, look, you're fighting against a tidal wave that you can't stop. Things are changing. Our perception, our beliefs about, and the reality about gender is changing. You're never going to stop it, right? And so he said, think of it this way. Some mornings you wake up and you feel great. Emotionally, you're all stable, things are great. And sometimes you wake up and you just don't feel good, right? You don't feel happy. Is that right? Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
sometimes people wake up and they want to be a girl and sometimes they want to be a boy. Sometimes they feel like they're in the more masculine side of themselves. Sometimes it's more feminine. You can't stop that. It's happening anyway. So the more you resist it, the more difficult it's going to be for you because they're who they are anyway, right?
Hmm.
The only person you're making miserable is yourself. And he said, look, here's one thing for sure, because you can say to yourself, well, why is this happening? Why are we seeing, more people want to be transgender, more people want to be whatever they want to be, right? There's a whole myriad of options, right? And those options are just going to keep adding. So he said, uh, well, I forgot my point here. What I was going to say. Oh yeah. So he said, look, you got to realize something. It's leading somewhere. It's not going to stop where it is. So where's it leading? Where is it going? It's going to be where we're leading to a place where we're going to be more androgynous,
Hmm.
right? And you've seen this. If you see, people give depictions of aliens in the future, they're androgynous,
Hmm.
right? They have no set sexuality or gender, right? Now they might have an agenda, but they but they don't have a specific agenda. That is where it's going, right? Think about it. If you can start expressing, experiencing, and being on an emotional scale, why can't you be that on other scales in your life? Why can't you have that freedom to express how you're feeling, not just in your emotions, but in your sexuality? So that's a heavy topic. It's a lot more to get into. And I didn't know I was going to go down that road. But interesting thinking, right? It's being open to possibilities. Now, is that a possibility for me? Nope. Could
Hmm.
it be? Yeah. But I can respect it and honor it for other people, and there's always been people who want to be transgender, but they pushed it down because it wasn't accepted, right?
Right.
They'd be the
Right.
only one. I don't know if you saw it recently. Who's that comedian? He's hilarious. He's been in so many movies on Saturday Night Live. Oh, I always have a hard time remembering his name. Anyway, there was one of the guys or the directors or editors or whatever that worked on Saturday Night Live, and they'd worked together. So I don't know how many years ago this was, and he called up this comedian. Oh, gosh, the name's on the top of my tongue. And he said, "I never told you this, but I'm a transgender.
Oh,
I used to
wow.
dress as a woman." He said, "And
Really?
now I've kind of stepped into it and I own it." And he said, "And I want to have this journey across the country, and I'd love you to join me." And he's like blown away. He had no idea, right? This had been happening. And so he did, and they
Wow.
made a documentary about it,
Hmm.
of him traveling with him and him owning the fact that now I wanted to dress as a woman and helping him feel more comfortable with that. And they go all kinds of places. They go to truck stops and everything. It's hilarious, right?
Wow.
While they're doing this. So, oh, I'll think of his name in a minute. You'll know exactly who I mean. He's very, very famous. But anyway, um, yeah. So the world is changing, man. The world is changing. I don't need to tell you that, right? We're a
Right.
little
Oh,
we're a little bit older than Angela, so we've seen a lot, right?
yeah.
And we've lived a long enough time to say, yeah, it's always been changing, but it is happening faster now. We're in the quickening, right? The quickening is happening, and the speed of change. And one of the other things I will talk about, and then you guys can pick up on this, is how it's affecting us, the speed through social media, movies, the actual pouring on of all these changes. You can't get away from it. But one of the biggest challenges is, who the hell's telling the truth?
Huh.
Who is, they denounce this news is all fake news, right? Even the real news is fake news because somebody's not going to like it, so it's going to be fake news, right?
Right.
You
Right.
never believe what anybody's saying because they got ulterior motives, usually in and around money. And so, what I believe, and I'll be interested to get you guys' thought, you can't get the truth outside of yourself.
Hmm.
It's in you,
Hmm.
right? Um, but God is not this person that left you here when you were born, right? God is within you, right? You can
Right.
communicate with God, the higher power, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And that's what we're being forced to do, to stop going without and go within. because that's where we'll find the truth. That's where we'll get the guidance. That's where we'll have the intuitive feelings about what is right and what is wrong, which is going to make life so much easier for us when we really start to tune into that intuition. We can make decisions like instantly instead of having to go to Chat GPT and go, now what is this right? Is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do?
Right.
So it's going to free us up, but it's going to be a painful journey to get there.
Yeah, you got a lot of people who are resistant to that. People who are saying a lot of things, but it's funny, I know in America we can live in an environment where we have these systems of belief.
Yeah.
What is manhood? What is it like to be a woman? What is it like to be whatever? I think a lot of it's built on fallacy. We want to pretend that we know what it is to be this and that and the other. But nowadays, I think people are really telling their truth. I got a 16-year-old. Angela's got younger, kids and older kids. And it's funny because when I talked to my 16-year-old, she said, what was she said to me last week? Dad, she said, I know who I am, which I thought was profound because when I was 16, I didn't even think of that. That was even
No.
even a,
Yeah. Yeah.
I only know in college I didn't know who the heck I was. And she's talking about I know who I am. I'm my own person. I'm this and that. She's defining herself verbally
Yeah.
to me, and I'm like, oh, I'm proud of you, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I could not have answered that. Heck, I'm still trying to find out who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But but for her, she's learned these lessons, these life lessons already, learning and learning more and more at 16.
Yeah.
But she's got so much.
I'd be interested to know what Angela thinks, but I'm pretty sure I have a certain level of certainty, maybe because of my belief. But these kids coming into the world now and for the last few generations are coming in at a lot higher level of consciousness immediately, right?
That's interesting.
They're bringing it in with them, right? And so they can understand these things faster. And then sometimes they just say things, right? And you go, holy heck, how do you know that, right? And when I say you can't really rely on anything outside of yourself, you can, because intuitively you know if something is true or not, right? Whether it comes from you or whether it comes from someone in an external world, you can always tell that that's coming from a higher power, right?
Right.
And you say, well, how do you know? Well, if something is based in fear, that is not coming from a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
If something is based in love, that is truth, right? That is
Mm-hmm.
truth, right? And so you can always resonate that. Everything is vibration, right? So when somebody says something to you, you feel the vibration of their words because a word is a vibration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just by the way they say it, if someone is lying, they know they're lying.
Right.
That affects the vibration of the words that they're speaking,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yes, you can tell, but we've got to, this is something that most of us have never done, right? It's just like what everybody says, that's what they're saying, and that's either, it's true or it's not true. Um, but there's so much more to it. There's different levels of vibration. So once we tune in and learn to, we all have intuition. Every single human being has it, but most people discount it because they think it's woo woo. This is crazy. We were never taught this at school. No one ever, my parents never taught me this. I don't know anybody that talks about intuition. So we don't think it exists, but it does. And it's kind of like, playing a musical instrument. You get someone who gives you a guitar or a violin. You're like, what the hell is that? I'm going to get that sound out of here. How's that going to work? But little by
Mm-hmm.
slow, you practice, right, of how to gently put, your fingers on the guitar, strum the guitar, and soon you're playing music, right? And the same thing with our intuition. We've got to learn how to use it. We've got to learn how to play it, right? It's about,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. There's a there's a person I was talking to not long ago about some of this stuff, and there are people who are coming into this world. I think born into this world who do have there's knowing there. There's some knowledge that there, I don't know if they're born with it or they're picking it up quicker because of technology or what, but they definitely have a lot more information than we did when it comes to certain topics. Learn from my daughter about stuff, and I'm thinking, how do you think about this kind of stuff? Because I didn't think about it even in adulthood. And here you are, 16, talking about, but she's always done that.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, well, I was a kid, listen to me. When she was a kid, she was 6, and she's got other, like half siblings. And she said, Dad, she said, and she was calling me at like 2 something in the morning when she was supposed to have been asleep. And she said on video conference, she said, my siblings and I are not the same.
Mhm.
They're different than I am, you know? And she was noticing differences back then
Yeah.
that I found to be very interesting because I'm like, how do you know? And she's grown up with that whole attitude. But I've also talked to other kids who didn't have that awareness
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I don't know. I think certain people are born with, how do I say it, Angela? Maybe preloaded.
That's great. Well, think about Mozart. This has always happened through the centuries, right? There is a, I mean, you could say Elon Musk today, right? I mean, how the
Right.
hell his brain works. I mean, he's how many companies, how many billion-dollar companies he's done? He's like, wait a minute, how on earth does anybody do one of those in a lifetime, let alone how many he's done? Because he's born into and with a level of consciousness that is way ahead of 99.999% of the human race, right? There are always going to be extremes, right? So, Mozart, I'm not saying that Elon Musk is Mozart, but the same kind of concept, right?
Right.
Mozart came in and he was just a savant, right? He could just do things he probably couldn't explain it, right? Like Da Vinci, right? Da Vinci, I mean, look at what he accomplished. And we haven't even explored a fraction of the scientific breakthroughs that he made, right? Aside from his painting. So anyway, yeah, I agree with you. People, so a lot of kids come in with just a higher level of awareness, of awakening, right from the start. Some
Well,
people kind of learn things as they go. Maybe it's maybe they came in with a higher level of awareness, and they've also learned things, right, and studied things and expanded on that. Yeah. So we're all at different stages of the same journey. The way I look at it is, we're all in our essence, our spiritual essence. We're all fully enlightened beings.
right.
We step into this world at varying levels of forgetfulness so we can have experiences that we couldn't have if we were in a state of full enlightenment, right? What would be the point, right? So we come into this life to have experiences, and we're all going around the circle, and we're just at different stages of that circle. And what we do is we do our best to hold our hand out for people behind us and help them up. Don't do it for them, but we give them a hand. And then we're reaching up at the same time for someone who's already further along than we are, and hopefully they will do the same. The circle of life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very peculiar thing. I looked at certain musical, um, very musical geniuses. You look at an Aretha Franklin or
Mm.
certain old, like a Janis Joplin or Carole King, or you listen to, say, like a Prince, Michael
Mhm,
Jackson, and
mhm. Yeah,
all of these people were ahead of their time
totally.
when it comes to, or you mentioned Mozart and all those.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's like, how is it possible that they're able to do what they do? I think it's purpose. They're
Yeah,
purposed for
yeah.
that.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean what I would say is none of these people had an easy life. None of them
Oh, no, 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 no.
had tremendous trauma. Michael Jackson, and even one of my favorite singers of all time is Whitney Houston. I think her
Oh,
voice could just make you
yes.
cry, right? Like
Oh,
just
you
unbelievable.
can't teach that. That's like,
Yeah,
what?
man. That she came into this world with that amazing voice. I'm not trying to say she didn't work hard on it. She did, right? She was very hardworking, but her life was so traumatic. you go, oh my God, she gave so much to the world, yet she had that trauma in her life, but that trauma also added to the vibration of her voice.
That's interesting, Doc. That's a beautiful way to look at that.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Trauma added to the vibration. I'm going to hold on to that.
Yeah, me too. I just came out.
Yeah. What do you think, Angela?
I
That's
never
pretty
said
good.
that before, right? Yeah, but it's true, right? It's true, Oh my God, man. I mean, I
You
even
think
look
about
at,
Adele too.
Adele.
oh my God, yeah. I mean, wow, just unbelievable. Just
I got
beautiful.
another one for you.
But
Dr.
just on Adele, I mean, she sings about her trauma, right?
Oh, yeah.
Relationships, how
Oh,
traumatic it was
yes.
for her, right?
Oh,
But
yes.
but out of that trauma comes that magic. Yeah. So
Yep.
sorry, Christopher, what were you
Uh,
saying?
Dr. Maya Angelou.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Amazing,
Power.
amazing woman, right? Yeah,
Power.
absolutely. So much love, so much compassion. And
Yeah, it's wonderful, man. We gotta wrap this one up. Doc, how would
what?
you
Wait a minute. We just got started, man.
I know it's insane. What words would you like to give, the audience for um uh if you had a life lesson, one life lesson
All right.
from your life?
All right. Oh, from my life. I thought you were going to say like one piece of advice. I was going to say, keep listening to this podcast. All right. So,
Ha!
from my life, wow. Yeah, there's a lot, but I would just go with that belief, like I've said, you're not a victim, nothing has
I
ever
love it.
happened to you. It's only ever happened for you. And if you can get committed to that belief and look back on your life, you'll find silver linings in all the things that happen. People you would never have met, things you have never done, things you've never experienced. And who you are today is a result of all of those things. And who you are today is magnificent. Who you are today is beautiful. I don't care what anybody else tells you. I don't even care if you're telling yourself something different because we end up doing that sometimes. If we hear all this negativity from other people, it's a bunch of BS, right?
Hmm.
The truth is, you are whole. And people might tell you you're broken. Show me where you're broken. You're not broken, right? You've experienced some things that have been difficult, a struggle to overcome, but that's why you were given them. They're a gift for you because on the other side of that is who you really are. And who you really are is amazing.
I love all this is a great podcast. This episode's been great. I really appreciate your perspective. Too many times people take the victim road, and that leads to nowhere. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this. This is enlightening, I think, and I can't wait to see the responses. Doc, this has been a beautiful day and episode. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
having me on, you and Angela. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you as well.
All right, you take care, sir.
Thank you.
Bye bye.